Gone are the days where having a wireless guitar system meant having a big receiver like this, which needs something like this to turn it on. And then there's the body pack receiver like this, which needs batteries to turn it on, which you have to keep changing. Now all you need is the NUX B-5RC. Starting off, before I tell you about the performance of the B-5RC, let me give you a quick overview. First of all, the packaging and the build quality of the NUX B-5RC is excellent. And the convenience of having a wireless guitar system in something that is this small and with such good quality is just a dream. As I mentioned at the start of the video, you no longer need that big receiver unit that needs to be plugged into power and that transmitter body pack which you need to keep changing batteries for. Everything fits into these two tiny units. The B-5RC also has the integration of this case, which is also a charging power bank. All you have to do is plug the two units into the case just like this and press the power button here on the side to juice it back up. When you press the power button, it also shows a power gauge as to how much battery is left in the case. We'll talk about the battery life in a bit. The next thing I want to get out of the way is the design of these things. The design of the two units make it work with any guitar that you may have. It comes with this pivot joint which enables it to turn into different angles, including having the angle that's required for your strat. But it also can get to a right angle, or it could be straight, or basically whatever you want to do with it. The units are also well labeled. There's a TX which indicates the transmitter and an RX which indicates the receiver. However, the glossy finish on the units make them fingerprint magnets. It's not a big deal, but if you have OCD about that thing, you might want to know. Both the transmitter and the receiver have a little button which enables you to turn them on and switch between the different modes. Once you turn them on, there are LED lights on the units which will tell you the status of the system. When the units aren't paired with each other, they're blinking red. And when they get paired with each other, they turn a solid green. You can also mute the signal of the system by clicking the power button on the transmitter. This turns the LED lights to a solid red when muted. And there's a cable mode which can be activated by clicking the power button on the receiver. And this turns the LED on the receiver orange. This mode tries to emulate what your guitar would sound like going through a long cable. To switch the units on, you need to press and hold the power button for a second. Alright, let's do the distance test now and see how far this thing can really work from. Alright, so I got the B-5RC plugged into my guitar, and I'm just gonna walk up the road and see how far this transmits. Alright, let's see how far that went. I really put this thing through its paces by testing it in a highly residential area which has so many signals and so much interference due to the many devices of all the apartment buildings around and the houses, and just kind of in the middle of the city. So one thing that I did notice is when walking away from the receiver, the signal dropped out much earlier than when walking back towards it. This could be because my body was partially blocking the signal, but when I turned around it had a more clear line of sight. I found the units functioned perfectly under 100 feet, but when you start hitting 150 you start hearing some dropouts. And by the time you hit 300 feet there are consistent dropouts. I also tested out the B-5RC in a few gigs that I had, as well as in church on Sundays. I noticed that indoors, when the transmitter and receiver were in the same room, there were absolutely no dropouts. Only when I went to another room and closed the door and there were about 2 walls in between, then would I start getting some dropouts. For a gigging musician, I would not recommend you use this more than the distance of 100 feet, just to be safe. Also, ensuring that the transmitter and receiver have direct line of sight will give you the best results possible. So for most people, the distance is not going to be an issue because you're going to be plugging in the transmitter to your guitar and the receiver to either the amp or your pedal board, which is generally not going to be that far away from you. You might, however, have a problem if your amp is more than 100 feet away, which I don't really ever see a situation like that arising. Now let's talk a little bit about latency. When the transmitter and receiver are not that far away from each other, you're not going to notice any latency at all. But when the distance starts to add up, you might feel like you're running the guitar through a plugin. It's totally usable, but you can also feel that the signal is slightly lagging behind you. But again, this is talking about when the transmitter and the receiver have about 100 feet in between them. Now we're going to do a frequency response test, and this is going to tell us if this thing changes the way your guitar sounds. So to test this out, I needed to eliminate as many variables as possible. So I decided to eliminate the variable of my playing changing from take to take. So what I did was, using a cable, I plugged my guitar into a looper pedal and I recorded a few parts. So from my looper pedal to the audio interface, this is where I did the comparison, switching between the cable and the B-5RC. Throughout all these examples, I'm also going to be putting an EQ curve up so you can visually see what's really going on. So what I found was that when using the B-5RC, there was no noticeable difference to the sound as compared to a cable. Especially when you're using the electric guitar, even when you enable the cable method on the B-5RC, it's not really that noticeable. However, when you plug in an acoustic guitar, then you can really start hearing the little differences. Because an acoustic guitar has a lot more high frequencies, when you switch on that cable mode, you can really hear that high frequency roll off. But just the standard mode on the B-5RC sounds quite similar, even identical to a 3 meter or even a 5 meter guitar cable. Now, all of these things don't matter if the battery life is bad and you can't even get through a gig with it. So let's talk a little bit about battery life. So I tested out the battery performance quite extensively because it's such an important factor to a unit like this. And to my pleasant surprise, on a single charge, I was easily able to get an average of 4 hours of playtime, give or take a few minutes, of course. I was able to easily get through an entire gig on a single charge. However, if needed, you can always plug in the transmitter and receiver to the power bank case and charge them back up during your set breaks. I also tested out the power bank to see how many times it could bring the transmitter and receiver back up to full power. The power bank case, when fully charged, is able to bring the transmitter and receiver back to full charge 2 times, as well as bring it up to 50% a third time if necessary. So all in all, you're getting almost 13 to 14 hours of playtime in just a small package, because you get the 4 hours from the initial charge, then you get 2 full recharges of this, which brings you up to 12 hours, and then you get about half a charge, so it's about 13 or 14 hours. So what are my final thoughts on the B-5RC? After using this product for quite some time and testing it out extensively, I think for $150, this thing is insane. It's a high quality product with amazing value for your money. The convenience of having wireless guitar in a package so small is something that literally feels like a dream. I know that there are other companies out there which make wireless units with a similar shape and size as these, but none of them do it as well as NUX. And the implementation of this charging power bank case just blows them all out of the water. I would recommend buying this just alone for the functionality of the charging power bank case. It makes a huge, massive difference without having to lug around a power adapter to connect to a wall every time you want to charge them back up. I don't think this thing can be beat for under $300, let alone $150, which this is going for. So if you're looking to buy a wireless guitar system, definitely check out the NUX B-5RC. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please do hit that like button. If you didn't, you can hit the dislike button, unlike button. Also, please consider hitting that subscribe button. It really does support me and help me grow this channel. Do drop a comment down below letting me know your thoughts on the B-5RC, as well as any questions you may have about the unit. Or you could just say something totally random, which is fine too. Alright, I shall see you guys in the next video.